time, 10 p.m. East Coast time. The pre-call opens at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, 9:30 p.m. East Coast time. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Felt a little tired today, with the gloomy, rain and the cold and everything. So I just, I took a little nap and I felt a little better after that. That was cool.
It's very sunny down here today, so it's very chilly, but we had sunshine. Nice day.
Great.
So
probably warmer than up here.
I'm going to go into our lecture mode here, folks, and we'll mute everybody out. And I want to say hi to Laura Legier. Thank you for sitting in as our backup co-host, and thank you, ladies, for your service to our Miracles Intel community and all of you've done to help us out. We appreciate it. And I got some fantastic news tonight, folks, I'm going to share with you. And it's really getting very interesting how this is all playing out. And we'll certainly talk a lot about that tonight. And so thank you to all of you for joining us tonight, and Maria Love and Laura Legier for being our co-hostess during the pre-call time period from 6:30 till about 7:05 p.m. as we welcome more and more people on the call tonight. We have a lot of people that like to listen to the recording of this call because it is rather late in the evening. And so that, of course, is available as soon as we end the call and stop the record button. The recording is available to listen to immediately after that, but not until we stop recording. Some people have complained they couldn't listen to the recording, and we're still actually conducting the call. So just make sure that when you go to listen to the recording that we have actually finished our call. And sometimes, especially on our Sunday night calls, we tend to go a little long with all the questions we get. So, Maria, have you noticed things are getting very interesting? And I've got some exciting news I'm going to share tonight regarding the latest vote totals. And it's getting, guess what, Maria? It's swinging in the president's favor. Surprise, surprise.
Oh, really? Oh, that's a big, huge surprise.
Yes.
Oh, it's so cool. It's just going to be so nice to get this all over with. It's just all of us that kind of like sitting here going, okay, we know about this. Let's get it done.
Yeah. Well, just think how sweet it's going to be when they all thought that Joe Biden was going to win, and they all pushed hard for this, and then it's going to completely turn around on them, and it's going to totally crash and burn. That is going to be something to behold, isn't it?
That's going to be the highlight. This will be the highlight of the year.
Okay, so let's get started here in just a bit, and as we allow more people to drift on, a lot of people are coming on the call at this time, and so we'll do a few announcements and then get our recording, our intel underway. So let's go ahead and start our recording, and then we'll do our presentation tonight, and we'll take your questions at the end of the evening. All right, so hopefully everyone can hear me well okay tonight. The audio is a little bit different tonight, speaking to you on an open mic on my computer, and we'll get started now.
The recording has started.
All right, there you go. The recording has started, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. It's Wednesday night, and it is Wednesday, November 11th, 2020. And you're listening to the Miracles Intel conference call. And this is our Wednesday night edition, which we begin at approximately 7 p.m. Pacific time. So thanks for joining us, and we look forward to you participating in our call tonight and being a part of this program. I want to first of all say Happy Veterans Day to everybody out there. Today is, of course, November 11th, Veterans Day. And I want to say thank you to all of our veterans and servicemen and women who have served our country in the Coast Guard, the Marine Corps, the United States Air Force, the U.S. Army, the U.S. Navy, all of the other divisions, whether it's the National Guard or even our police and firemen. We thank you for your service to this country. We'll have more to talk about Veterans Day tonight and later on in our program. I just want to remind everybody that if you're still interested in the Jade Mat or the iGuard, then forward your orders to me, and we'll try and get those processed to you right now. Unfortunately, Magical Waves is sort of running right now in a scaled down mode, as they aren't answering as many emails and so forth. So I'm forwarding things to them and endeavoring to get your orders processed. So if you need help with those and you haven't heard from them, I don't do any technical support. I can't tell you about the status of your order or your shipment, but I certainly can place an order for you with Magical Waves for Jade Mat or for help with an iGuard. Those are still available. We'll be having new products coming out here called the OmniMat, which you'll see on the website right now. You can read about it at magicalwaves.com, as well as the Matrix Cream, which is going to be available here anytime now. So if you'd like to become part of our group, you can send an email to us, scottm6975 at yahoo.com. Put subscribe in the subject line, and please give us your full name, and we will add you to our email list. Some of you who have had issues receiving our emails, we are being censored, so just be aware. If you're not receiving them, it's likely due to the fact that they're going somewhere lost in space because of Gmail and Yahoo Mail doing funny business with our announcements. So I'm afraid there's not much we can do except recommend you use a different email address. Also, we conduct these calls for free, and you are welcome to join us on Wednesdays and Sundays. When we sometimes if we have 3 calls in 1 week, we will cancel the Wednesday. But if you make a donation, you're eligible for the Special Miracles Intel call, and we have another one coming up at the end of this month, and it's November the 27th. So mark that on your calendar. That's a Friday, and that's the day after Thanksgiving, and that's Black Friday. How about that? And so we'll be doing our special call that evening. If you're out busy shopping or doing things, that you can always listen to the recording. So don't worry about that. So let me say thank you to people who have donated this week. And I would like to say thank you to Judy. This is through PayPal. Carla and Grace and William, James, Mike, Eric, Marianne, Donna, Betsy, 3 Owls, Fred, and Michael. And you can make a donation through PayPal at the same email address, scottm6975 at yahoo.com. And I want to thank all of those people who have made donations. Those names I just read, of course, are eligible for our upcoming Miracles Intel special call, which is the Friday, November 27th. Let me also thank you on Zelle to Nancy and to Sherry and to all of you who have written and with your donations through the mail. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time to write to me and send your thoughts and your prayers and your donations through the mail. And all of you who sit down and write out a handwritten note to me, it's very touching, and I really appreciate it. It really means a lot to me, and I am grateful to hear from you and knowing that we have provided you with some clarity, some maybe some calmness, and some comfort in the process as it's carrying forward. So thank you all for your correspondence, and all of you who email us with your kind words and your encouragement. We really appreciate that. Maria and I are very grateful for your support, and we are honored to be able to serve you. Okay, So let's get into our program tonight. Those are our announcements. And we're going to talk about some pretty exciting things tonight, as we'll pick up where we left off on the Sunday program. As now, again, our Sunday program, we went through all the different ways in which this election, this 2020 election process, is really a gigantic military operation. It's way more, as Q said, this is more than a 4-year election. So what you're witnessing is a military intelligence operation to expose the fraudulent U.S. election systems all over the country, in every state, in every city, in every county. And there is going to be quite a reckoning as a result of this. And we went through all of this on Sunday, all the different ways this is being exposed, and we're going to do more of that tonight. Now, obviously, I don't have to tell you, we are living in strange, very strange times indeed. And Plato, the great philosopher, Greek philosopher, said this all the way back in the year 427 BC. Strange times are these in which we live, when old and young are taught falsehoods in school, and the person that dares to tell the truth is called at once a lunatic and a fool. Well, isn't that appropriate right now more than ever? And that was all the way back in the year 427 BC. We are certainly living in strange times, and I have to warn you, it's going to get stranger, and it's going to be more exasperating as you see these fake news media outlets, the Democrats and the radical, well, anyone who voted for Joe Biden on the left wing, gloat and put you down because you're a Donald Trump supporter or voter. Realize they are in the minority by a long shot, and this will, exasperating as it is and as frustrating, this is all going to come to a glorious end, and there's going to be a magnificent turnaround. But it's important to understand that what we have just witnessed last week was the most corrupt, fraudulent, compromised, scandalous election in not only U.S. history, but most likely in world history. It was that bad. And we knew that Donald Trump was going to win this election by a landslide, but we had no idea how far and how widespread the fraud would be to try and stop him. And because of his landslide victory, this is why it all was instituted, the fraud and the stealing of votes. This was a stolen election, folks, as we have said. Now, President Trump said on the 8th of November, as we mentioned last time, after the mainstream media, the fake news media, called the election for Joe Biden, President Trump put out on Twitter, he said, "Since when does the mainstream media call who our next president will be?" We have all learned a lot in the last 2 weeks. Now, and Joe Massapos said, President-elect too, there is no president-elect. There's merely a fantasy projected into existence by the fake news who know they stand to lose it all when the real winner is declared. Now, President Trump, of course, is right as always. He always tells the truth. He always is brutally honest, whether you like it or not. And he is correct in his assessment that the fake news media has absolutely no official role in declaring a winner of the election. And this has been going on for years, decades, of them calling elections that have yet to be determined and actually affecting the outcome of elections. And this is coming to an end, folks. You're seeing the last days of this. Now, the Patriots, the U.S. military intelligence, Q military intelligence, the Earth Alliance, President Trump's team, they definitely wanted the American people to see how corrupt, and have we got a taste of it this year, how corrupt the American voting system truly is. And so, because there is a much bigger and broader mission ongoing right now, and this is part of the Great Awakening, this is part of the military action plan, they're tearing the whole corrupt system down, piece by piece. Now, as you recall, and we've played this already a couple of times, but it's important to really see what happened here. Back on October the 24th, which was a Saturday, Joe Biden was speaking and kind of really spilled the beans at his campaign event here. And it was President Trump brought it out and Kayleigh McEnany. And let's go back again and listen to Sleepy Joe Biden basically admit the fraud operation before it had even begun.
Secondly, we're in a situation where we have put together, and you guys did it for our the President Obama's administration before this, we have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Okay, so there is Sleepy Joe admitting they have put together a massive voter fraud operation into place. Now, the question is, do you really think Joe Biden actually meant to admit to massive voter fraud, or were the Patriots controlling what this Joe Biden said to the people? In other words, the clone of Joe Biden, the double, or whoever this is, because this is certainly not the real Joe Biden. As we have told you, Joe Biden has already been through an arrest, a military tribunal, found guilty and executed for treason, along with his son Hunter Biden. So the Patriots are controlling this version of Joe Biden, and they're using him to tear down the Democratic Party, implode it from within. So don't think for a second that this was just a mistake. This was intentional, that the Patriots put this out so you got a heads up of what was really going on. And indeed, they did. And they have done it. The Democratic and the deep state, the Democratic Party and the deep state have done it through various methods of fraudulent ballots, mail-in voting, mailing ballots to dead people, mailing ballots to people's pets who all voted for Joe Biden, flipping votes in software. You're going to hear this a lot more, this Dominion software and scorecard that they use to change votes. This was a massive military operation, and the Patriots sat back and let them do it in order to catch them with their crimes. Now, President Trump now and the Patriots are in the process of destroying the dirty, rotten, and corrupt U.S. election system before our very eyes. Folks, this will be the last year this will happen. And this is the mother of all corrupt. This is the grand finale. And man, you know how when they end a fireworks display and they have the grand finale, all the fireworks? That's how we're going out, with all-out corruption and stealing. Now, eventually, after all of this voter fraud is uncovered right now, being uncovered right now, it will allow the Patriots to install the voter ID laws, which will permanently change the way we vote. No more dead people, no more illegal aliens, no more pets, no more mail-in ballots. It'll all be done through voter ID at a polling station. Unfortunately, now, what we are finding out, it is very likely we are weeks away from seeing the 2020 election resolved, and at least maybe until December the 14th when the Electoral College meets. So that means another month of this. And so again, hold your powder, stay the course, trust the plan. I suggest that you stay away from the mainstream media for now because it's going to be very frustrating. Nonetheless, we can assure you President Trump will emerge victorious in a landslide election, as you'll soon discover. Now, let's go through some of the headlines over the last week or so as we discuss these unfolding news developments. And we're going to pick it up from Saturday, November 7th. And that was the day that fake news media announced that Joe Biden was the winner of the 2020 election, with no proof, no evidence, pure speculation. Hadn't even finished counting the votes yet in as many as 7 states, and yet they gave it to him. Now, this was collusion on the mainstream media's part, and they will be held accountable. And this could be the death knell for the fake news media. So this headline from Breitbart News says it all. Donald Trump tweets, "I won," and then goes golfing. President Donald Trump left the White House on Saturday afternoon for a round of golf after spending 4 days watching the election returns come in. But he did have a message for his followers: "I won." So this is President Trump, what you're seeing, his master trolling expertise. You know how they get on him for golfing, which he does only occasionally. And he just basically rubbed it in their faces. "I won, and I'm going golfing." So that tells you that President Trump, if he goes golfing, that he was not at all concerned about the election results whatsoever. He knows he's got the real deal. He knows the true facts, which we're going to get into, of what really happened on election night. And when he came out after the November 3rd into the wee hours of November 4th and gave a press conference at 2:20 in the morning, he said, "I am confident we have won this election." He was exactly right, because the numbers that he was watching in the Situation Room were, he witnessed the whole thing being stolen. On Sunday, November 8th, this headline reads, "Huge breaking news in Georgia. 132,000 ballots in Fulton County, Georgia have been identified, which are now likely ineligible." Let's go to Monday, November 9th. "With all the recounts, investigations, audits, and court cases, this election is far from over," said the Gateway pundit. "Another glitch. Trump loses 32,615 votes in Pennsylvania in 1 hour in the AP totals." Huge, exclusive. Michigan AG Dana Nessel sends cease and desist order to journalists demanding he erase his Detroit Leaks video showing voter fraud training or face criminal prosecution. This attorney general in Michigan, Dana Nessel, is extremely corrupt, along with their governor, Gretchen Whitmer. Exclusive. System glitch also uncovered in Wisconsin. Reversal of swap votes removes lead from Joe Biden. Exclusive. Eric Eggers says weird anomalies in Michigan, Pennsylvania raising tough question among voters. Republicans begin filing FCC complaints about the networks who falsely claim Joe Biden is the president-elect. Now, Kayleigh McEnany had a press conference on Monday on election fraud, and Fox News cut away from it. Neil Cavuto says the network, quote, "can't verify her claim, so they will not air it." Neil Cavuto, a corrupt, deep state, fake news operative for Fox News. Fox News is getting called to the carpet. And Joe Massapos said on this, enemy media think they are the legal system and their propaganda is the law. They think They decide what is the fraud and what isn't, or who wins elections and who doesn't. They have no legal clout or power of any kind, and it kills them. All they can do is print their fantasies, but it won't change the rulings of the court. Well, meanwhile, Fox News ratings crashed over the weekend. Remember, we reported last Sunday that they wouldn't allow Judge Jeanine to do her show because she was going to talk about election fraud. How Republicans are selling the myth of rampant voter fraud. Yes, it's a big myth. And shame on you if you even question the election that Joe Biden didn't win. President Trump then tweeted out on November 9th at 4:19 p.m. A story that Georgia's election result will include legally cast ballots and only legally cast ballots, period. That's from the governor, Brian Kemp. And President Trump writes on Twitter, "This is good news. It means I won." On CNN's Jake Tapper tells President Trump's staffers to concede or get blacklisted. In other words, you'll never find a job in Washington, D.C. again because Joe Biden's taken over. Whoopi Goldberg, who's got to be one of the dumbest people I've ever seen on network television, to Trump supporters, how dare you question election results? Suck it up. How dare you? Can't question these. Now there's a big development on Monday. Attorney General William Barr authorized federal prosecutors to pursue, quote, substantial allegations, unquote, of voting irregularities before the 2020 election is certified. 39 House Republicans asked Bill Barr to ensure integrity of voting and counting process. Attorney General William Barr authorizes the DOJ to look into voting irregularities. Now, Jack Posobiec of One America News Network put out a tweet, and he said this: is William Barr about to appoint Jeff Sessions to lead the voter fraud investigation? Isn't that interesting? Jeff Sessions making a comeback, the former Attorney General, who President Trump has gone out of his way to criticize. Maybe this is the reason, is so it doesn't look like political bias when he's appointed. If this is true, Joe M. said on Gab, the alternative to Twitter, it's finally making sense why the president spent 3 years pretending to hate Sessions when patriots knew it was a charade. The left will not be able to claim it is Trump's cronies who are litigating the fraud that lost him the election. And also on the 9th at 4:43 p.m., President Trump put out this tweet: the U.S. FDA and the Democrats didn't want to have me get a vaccine win prior to the election. So instead, it came out 5 days later, as I've said all along. So what they did, Pfizer waited until after the election to say they have a vaccine ready. Now, Pfizer and most of the pharmaceutical companies all donated to Joe Biden because President Trump is going after the pharmaceutical companies and their massive profits siphoning off from America. Joe Biden implores Americans to wear a mask. The election is over. Joe Biden announces a COVID lockdown panel, plans a nationwide mandatory mask mandate, lockdown and contact tracing. Do you see what the Joe Biden administration would be like? Nazism, fascism, totalitarianism, dictatorship. You're getting a taste of it right now. Joe Biden proposes hiring at least 100,000, quote, culturally competent contact tracers. What does culturally competent mean? What the hell is that? It means, do you qualify as a fascist to help us out? Mark Levine on Twitter wrote this about Joe Biden. Phony Joe Biden. Joe Biden is truly an ambulance chaser. He had nothing to do with the vaccine that is about to be made available to the public. He had nothing to do with the manufacturing process that is already underway. And he had nothing to do with the distribution process that is set in place, all of which were superbly instituted by President Trump and his team. So there he is, at a podium, reading from a teleprompter, telling us how he will follow the science and how he will distribute the vaccine, etc. Now that Pfizer has announced today that its vaccine is ready to go very, very soon, obviously, Pfizer chose to hold back its announcement until after the election. This is the kind of BS we are going to hear from this clown, to quote him, who did absolutely nothing, and he has done absolutely nothing. In fact, all the while, when President Trump and his team were doing everything possible to get vaccines and therapeutics invented and distributed, Biden was attacking them every step of the way. But it's just like the economy, which is springing back in a huge way. Biden has trashed the unprecedented rebound, spewing the usual bromides about how only the rich benefit, etc. Biden is not the president yet, if ever, depending how events unfold. But regardless, this really takes a set of grapefruits for Biden to posture as he did today, and for the media to regurgitate it like Biden has somehow done something or accomplished something. Biden has been AWOL, utterly irrelevant, and it is nauseating watching this choreographed fiction by the guy who hid in his basement throughout the virus. That was Mark Levine on Twitter. Tom Fitton said, according to Biden, Joe Biden's talking to foreign leaders about U.S. policy is a violation of the Logan Act. At least that is what he and the Obama gang said in 2016 and 2017 as they were pursuing their seditious conspiracy against Donald Trump and General Michael Flynn. Now, should this all go to the Supreme Court, this election, which is inevitable, I think, at this point, three Supreme Court justices were on the Bush legal team from the 2000 election, and guess who they were? Chief Justice John Roberts, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. Maybe now you're seeing why these people were put into place. Now, as X22 report said on Twitter on the 9th, think logically. How do you return the power to the people? The deep state system needs to be destroyed. How do you do that? You expose it all. You are witnessing the systematic destruction of the old guard. Meanwhile, a Catholic exorcist, Father Chad Rippergear, calls on the faithful to recite prayers to bind the evil spirits and satanic forces until the election oddities are resolved. Father Chad Rippergear is a respected exorcist in the Catholic Church. The Good Father is asking Christians to recite this prayer in our ongoing battle against evil and the evil one. And we are truly in a battle between goodness and truth and the horrors of Satan's lies. There is a concerted effort by the powerful forces to lord over us all. Now, let's go to Tuesday, the 10th, November 10th. In the morning, at 7:33 a.m., President Trump put out this tweet, and it's all in capital letters. Watch for massive ballot counting abuse, and just like the early vaccine, remember, I told you so. That was President Trump on Twitter. And the Gateway Pundit wrote, why did 6 battleground states with Democratic governors all pause counting on election night? And how was this coordinated? We'll talk more about that in a bit. Surprise! The city of Philadelphia finds another 2,000 ballots a week after Election Day. 92% go to Joe Biden. More glitches in Pennsylvania. Votes for Trump drop in 3 different counties simultaneously, almost as if it was coordinated. I was in Philadelphia watching fraud happen. Here's how it went down. That was an article in the Federalist that President Trump retweeted. Insane. Pennsylvania's Allegheny County Board of Elections votes to count undated ballots. Fraud. More fraud. In Erie, Pennsylvania, United States postal worker placed on unpaid leave for blowing whistle on the backdating of ballots. And President Trump retweeted that. And he wrote, a brave patriot. More and more people are stepping forward to expose this rigged election. President Trump then put out another tweet on Pennsylvania on the 10th. Highly respected Ken Starr said this: Pennsylvania's 3-day extension of mail-in ballot deadline is a constitutional travesty. And President Trump added, legal scholars agree. And in another tweet, President Trump said, Pennsylvania party leadership votes are this week. I hope they pick very tough and smart fighters. We will win. Now, folks, the legislative branches in these swing states like Georgia and in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin are going to play possibly a pivotal role in sorting this whole thing out. And they're all controlled by Republicans, both houses. And this is what President Trump is talking about here in Pennsylvania, that they pick very tough and smart fighters. Stunning sworn affidavit, former Michigan Assistant Attorney General. Election worker assigned new names to voters when it appeared absentee ballot was from a person who already voted. Huge. An analysis finds over 10,000 dead people returned mail-in ballots in Michigan. Isn't that amazing? They rose from the dead to vote for Joe Biden. An MIT PhD analysis reveals 138,000 votes switch from Trump to Biden in Michigan. A Trump campaign then files federal lawsuit in Michigan over fraud allegations on Tuesday. Members of the Georgia Republican congressional delegation demand answers from Secretary of State Raffensperger about allegations of voter irregularities. Oregon elections director fired after sharing security and spending concerns in the state of Oregon. Now, researchers question the reliability of the Dominion voting systems, election systems, and software. So Dominion is the software that was used in many of these voting machines that flipped the votes. The deep state was controlling that. Breaking exclusive analysis of election night data from all states shows millions of votes either switched from President Trump to Biden or were lost using Dominion and other systems. Jay Sekulow, the president's personal attorney, said the Trump campaign should be demanding a manual recount in places with software that glitched in the state of Michigan. Now, listen to this. 10 state attorney generals have now joined a lawsuit against Pennsylvania, where individuals were allowed to vote 3 days after the election. 10 state attorney generals joined the suit against Pennsylvania court's attempt to unlawfully change the Constitution. We are finding, folks, that Pennsylvania is one of the most corrupt states in all of U.S. They're almost on par now with New York and California. The amount of fraud that's been done, amazing. Meanwhile, nearly 80% of Republicans in a recent poll believe results in Pennsylvania are littered with fraud, because they are. Republicans aren't buying it. A supermajority of Republicans believe the 2020 election was a fraud. The Morning Consult, which appears to have a left-leaning bias, reported results from its recent polling on the election. They noted that nearly all Republicans believe the results of the 2020 election involved Democrat fraud. Now, listen to this. Yesterday, President Trump, as well as, and this is big news from North Carolina, President Trump and GOP Senator Thom Tillis win the North Carolina election, according to the Decision Desk headquarters. Wow. So, this is an amazing development. Now, current actual election result update. President Trump is leading Electoral College with more paths to victory than Joe Biden. And then President Trump yesterday on Twitter said, wait until you see what's coming. President Trump fires a warning shot on fraudulent computer voting systems. He wrote this, and he quoted Lou Dobbs. I don't care what state you're in, this computer voting system is wide open to fraud and intervention. Quote from Lou Dobbs. And President Trump added, true, and wait until you see what's coming. He added, people will not accept this rigged election. He retweeted Scott Adams on Twitter. You are being brainwashed to accept the results of this election as fair. You will be told that only bad people are skeptical in this situation, and that you will be held to account for doubting. Now, there are a number of Republican senators who have yet to congratulate Joe Biden on his victory. These include many names which are familiar, including Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana, and, of course, Mitch McConnell, and also Senator McSally from Arizona, Rick Scott from Florida, Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee. These are all many of President Trump's, and Lindsey Graham, of course, from South Carolina. These are all President Trump's allies. But in the UK, Boris Johnson congratulated Joe Biden, as did Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Why would they do that? They're supposed to be allies of President Trump. Have they outed themselves? But Vladimir Putin in Russia, he came out and says he's going to wait for the official election results before recognizing a winner. Now, as Joe Biden was holding a celebratory rally, social distancing not a concern as large crowds gathered to show support for Joe Biden. You know, all that mask stuff and all those social distancing, yeah, forget about that. We won the election. No need to worry about that anymore. Is this about an election or is this about a virus? Now, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said something interesting, and I would like to play you this quote. However, I want to make sure that I can upload it for you. here because I did forget to do that. But he said something interesting yesterday. So let me go ahead and upload this clip because he was speaking at the State Department and yesterday, and a reporter asked him a question. So let's get this uploaded here so you can hear it. And the Gateway Pundit reported, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says there will be a smooth transition to the second Trump administration. And he was just sort of answering the reporter's question yesterday and gave a sort of in-your-face response, which I'm going to play for you in just a moment here. And President Trump, of course, is a big fan of Mike Pompeo's, and he's one of President Trump's strongest allies. And I thought his response was terrific, so that's why I want to play this for you today as we wait this to upload. And then I'll go ahead and play this audio clip, which is just about ready to go. So again, this is Mike Pompeo yesterday at the State Department. And you'll hear a reporter ask a question.
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. Right? We're ready. The world is watching what's taking place here. We're going to count all the votes. When the process is complete, there'll be electors selected. There's a process. The Constitution lays it out pretty clearly. The world should have every confidence that the transition necessary to make sure that the State Department is functional today, successful today, and successful with the president who's in office on January 20th, a minute afternoon, will also be successful. I went through a transition on the front, and I've been on the other side of this. I'm very confident that we will do all the things that are necessary to make sure that the government, the United States government, will continue to perform its national security function as we go forward.
Do you believe there's widespread voter fraud, that the reports that we're getting from Pennsylvania, from Michigan, showing vote totals in massive leads or significant leads with 99% reporting are going to be overturned, and that the United States failed to conduct a fraudulent free election?
Rich, I'm the Secretary of State. I'm getting calls from all across the world. These people are watching our election. They understand that we have a legal process. They understand that this takes time. Right? It took us 37 plus days in an election back in 2000. Conducted a successful transition then. I'm very confident that we will count, and we must count every legal vote. We must make sure that any vote that wasn't lawful ought not be counted. That dilutes your vote if it's done improperly. Got to get that right. When we get it right, we'll get it right. We're in good shape.
Okay, so there is Mike Pompeo, clearly confident that this election is going to go President Trump's way, as we all should be. Now, so that was yesterday. So President Trump said this on Twitter. That's why Mike Pompeo was number one in his class at West Point. So Joe M. added this yesterday on Twitter, or excuse me, on Gab. First they popped corks and they danced in the street, calling for unity. Then they began to sense a subtle nervous twang that something just wasn't right. Joyous smiles faded with the creeping and familiar sting of doubt. Then they perked up in fright. The color drained from their face. This simply cannot possibly be, they try to reason. But patriots know it can, and certainly will. In the coming days and weeks, there will be a lot of broken minds and broken glass. Be ready. And then he added this. Friends, we've spent a long time waiting for the storm. For 4 years, we heard the thunder and saw flashes across the night sky, but it always was further away than we anticipated. This time, there is a deadline. Inauguration dates are not subjective predictions that could be wrong. The world is about to be rocked when it discovers patriots never had any intention of handing our country over to traitors and foreign enemies. With the fake news panic starting to set in, as they realize this is happening for real, and with there being zero doubt in the victory patriots always knew was coming, now really is the time to buckle your seatbelt and get ready to see the liberal meltdown of the century. Tick-tock. And finally, yesterday, President Trump added on Twitter, this was posted very early in the morning on the 10th, and he put this in all caps, "We will win." Now, do you ever have any doubt that President Trump is ever going to lose? He's a winner. He knows how to win. He's not going to lose this election, and you can take that to the bank. President Trump is a winner, and thank God he's our president. Let's go to the day's headlines, Wednesday, November 11th. Pennsylvania is a mess. Tens of thousands of Pennsylvania ballots were returned before they were sent out. Breaking news. Georgia's Secretary of State announces they will conduct a hand recount and a full audit of every single legal vote. Georgia's Secretary of State announces a full by-hand recount in each and every county in Georgia. Breaking, Rudy Giuliani confirms that Dominion, the software, that Dominion whistleblowers are coming forward. These are people who work for the company. John Brennan, former CIA director, concerned what Trump might do in the next 70 days and calls for Trump to be removed from office. James Clapper says, the Trump administration is in a slow slide into autocracy by not conceding the election. Now, Joe Biden said in September, I will not declare victory until the election is independently certified. Well, guess what? Nothing has been certified for Sleepy Joe yet. Nothing. Not one state. Joe Biden said it's an embarrassment that Donald Trump hasn't conceded yet. Joe Biden taunts President Trump for not conceding in a speech about health care. Joe Biden's COVID advisor calls for an unconstitutional 4 to 6 week nationwide lockdown to revive the economy. Over at Fox News, meanwhile, Fox's contempt for Donald Trump supporters exposed in an off-air video. Fox News anchor Sandra Smith expresses her elitist contempt after a Trump supporter dares question the mighty Fox News channel's decision to declare his fraudulency, Joe Biden, the winner of a hotly contested presidential election. Anger grows now among Fox News over the network's coverage of the 2020 election. Remember, we said to you on Sunday, Fox News aire's wife, Catherine Murdoch, wife of Rupert Murdoch, calls President Trump a dictator and tweets out, "We did it," after Fox News declares Joe Biden the winner. So there you know all you need to about what Fox News' true agenda is. Now, a Fox News has now hired a crisis management team to handle the PR over their ratings crisis. They're tanking because of their fraudulent election coverage, which has angered many people. Now, just late today, the FEC, the Federal Election Commission Chairman Trey Traynor, said this: I do believe there is fraud in these places. If the law is not followed, it makes this an illegitimate election. Current election update: Trump ahead with most states, most electoral college votes, and most legitimate votes in history. Joe Biden is committing the biggest fraud ever. Now, also this, Wayne Allen Root says, Vegas odd makers say the fix was in, Trump was robbed, this election was stolen. And today, the 11th of November, the fake news media finally calls the state of Alaska for Donald Trump 8 days after the election. So in the last 2 days, President Trump has picked up North Carolina and now Alaska. Now listen to this. The Epoch Times, epochtimes.com, says the election outcome is unclear amid pending recounts and legal challenges in the state of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, and Arizona. And currently, now listen to this, folks. Here is the official Electoral College numbers. Now listen to this carefully. President Trump, 232 electoral votes. Joe Biden, 227. President Trump is leading in the official count by 5 electoral college votes right now, with Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia to be yet to be determined. And he should win all those states as well. So that will put him easily over the 270 threshold. So Joe Biden will stall out at 227 electoral votes unless more fraud is discovered in some of these states he's won, like Minnesota and other states, Maine particularly. How about that? So listen to me again. President Trump is leading right now in the official Electoral College count. 232 Electoral College votes for Donald Trump, 227 for Joe Biden. So much for Joe Biden winning the presidency. Now, there is an office in the U.S., it's called the GSA, the General Service Administration. They are the ones that officially certify the elections. The GSA responds to the Biden campaign. Ascertainment has not been made on power transfer. So they are not telling the American people that Joe Biden won this election. And they are not going to begin the power transfer over to the Biden administration. Head of the General Service Administration delays the transfer of power to Joe Biden. So this has occurred just on the 9th. So in other words, Joe Biden hasn't won anything. Nothing is happening for Joe Biden. He is losing the election right now. Pressure mounts on the federal agency, the GSA, to affirm Biden victory. Well, the pressure is coming from the fake deep state and the mainstream media. So therefore, we recommend you stay away from all fake news media outlets, except the only thing that seems to be reporting any kind of truth are Fox News at night, like Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, and Laura Ingraham, and then on the weekends, Jesse Waters and Judge Jeanine. But do not watch Fox during the day. We do not recommend it. It's really bad. Now, listen to this. According to Charlie Ward, President Donald Trump won the 2020 election by accumulating 80% of the votes nationwide. That means he won practically every single state, as we had predicted, as we had analyzed, as we had assumed it was going to happen. President Trump won nearly every state, if not all of them, on Tuesday night. Last Tuesday, November 3rd. Now, this was sent in by one of our listeners. A Trump win is validated by the quantum blockchain system recount of votes. This was put out on Sunday, November 8th. A recount of voting ballots nationwide was being done by elite units of the National Guard early Sunday morning, November 8th. To prevent fraud, official ballots had been printed with an invisible, unbreakable code watermark and registered on a quantum blockchain system. That's called the QVS, the Quantum Voting System. As of this writing, in 5 states, 14 million ballots had been put through a laser scanner, 78% of which failed because there was no watermark to verify the ballot. Of those that failed, 100% had checked for Biden. An initial test showed that according to watermarks on validated ballots fed into the quantum computer, President Trump won re-election by over 80% of the legal ballot cast. The final validated vote tallied in that test, Trump has 73.5 million votes to Biden's 25.9 million. And that didn't even account for Trump's votes that people observed being tossed and never accounted for. Interesting enough, those figures correspond with the two men's Twitter accounts. Trump had 88.8 million followers to Biden's 16.6 million. Using the infrared equipment that read which ballots were real or fake, the elite National Guardsmen had been deployed to the 12 targeted states of Alabama, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Texas, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Washington, Virginia, Delaware, Illinois, and Kentucky. In all nationwide, over 500 National Guardsmen were on guard over all ballot counting units. There was much more to the test for fraudulent voting. In addition to the watermark, these official ballots also contained ink made of corn, which created an electronic radiation circuit ID that could trace the location of that ballot through GPS transmission. In other words, they could trace if the ballot was filled out by the person named on the ballot. The Trump team would be filing a number of lawsuits on Monday, November 9th. They have been preparing for this for a long time under an election fraud investigation called Project Veritas. Judicial Watch said, our new study shows 1.8 million excess or ghost voters in 353 counties across 29 states. The data highlights the recklessness of mailing blindly ballot applications to voter registration lists. In Pennsylvania alone, Donald Trump's legal counsel, Rudy Giuliani, had testimony of 50 to 60 poll watchers who claimed being deprived of the ability to inspect mail-in ballots. Nationally, noted attorney Sidney Powell, that is Michael Flynn's attorney, is rumored to be appointed to the next FBI director, has said, Hammer and Scorecard, the NSA security software turned illegal election software, ran an algorithm that gave Joe Biden a 3% vote advantage in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, and Arizona. Rest assured, all legal issues will be accounted for the time for the Electoral College meets on December 14th, 2020. By then, real election results, post-court battles, will determine all legally cast ballots. The joint session of Congress would make the election official on January 3rd, 2021. Now, there's a new Gene Decode video out, and it was put out by a YouTube channel, His Glory. So I want to play you a clip from this, and this was put out just here within the last couple of days. And I want to play you a couple of clips from this interview with Gene Decode. Now, before I get started, it's important to understand that Gene, of course, predicted that Joe Biden would be indicted before the election. And that, of course, never happened, and obviously was never intended to happen because of this huge military operation to expose voter fraud in America. So Gene was completely 100% wrong about Joe Biden being indicted before the election, as we have learned. However, I'm going to play you this clip and listen to what, I'm going to play you two clips here from Gene Decode. Here's the first one.
So the first thing I wanted to go over is the watermark and the QVS dot. The watermark is, of course, most people are familiar with watermarks. All the legal ballots, whether they're made out, mailed out, or you go to a voting and it prints it out, are supposed to have watermarks in them. If they don't have the watermarks, then it's not a legal ballot. In addition to those that have that watermark, they have what's called a QVS dot. What that is a micro dot. To find that in that paper, you would have to go over every micron with a microscope. It's essentially impossible of that paper to find. What that micro dot does is it's much like the F-22, where it reads the thoughts. The F-22 reads the thoughts of the pilot and the co-pilot, so the craft does what, because of the speed of what is required, it does what they think. And so you don't have to go from eye to hand, from brain to eye to hand and all of that with the delay time in there. In the case of the QVS microdot, what it does is when the person is voting, it records what they think. In other words, if they think, they look, Joe Biden, Trump, well, if they think and, select a color pin as you're supposed to, a black pin, or however it's recorded, it records the person's initial. It also records an imprint of that person. So it records who that person is, and it records how they voted for every single thing on that ballot. They voted for their local, laws and senators, congressmen, all of that's recorded. So then if later the same person were to go to another ballot box somewhere else and vote again, once the QVS is activated, it will count the initial votes only. So if a person votes more than one time, it will dump all of those votes. If somebody votes for somebody else, it will dump that vote, which that's illegal. Voting for somebody else, that's illegal. It will dump that vote because it'll know who the person, it'll tie to the person that's on the voter thing. It knows who's registered. It'll tie to that. If that's not the person voting, it will dump that vote. If the vote is changed later, it won't recognize it. It won't recognize the change. It will recognize the thought of the original vote. If it's not a legal ballot, it doesn't have the watermark in the QVS dot, that vote won't be recognized at all. So that's the next thing I wanted to go into, is that they did bring over from China millions of votes. And so what they brought over, let me pull this up real quick here.
Before you get into the China, let me ask one more question that I was told. Maybe you can clarify this. I was told that part of that the QF system was, as you said, you couldn't duplicate your vote. It went through a master database of like the entire database of all government facilities, like a supercomputer. And it identifies whether you're dead or not, so a dead person couldn't vote as well. Is that true?
Absolutely. It's that QVS, once it's activated, it identifies if the person is a registered living voter and is an American citizen. All of that is, if that is not the case, the vote is not counted. Okay. Once that QVS is, and that's linked to the hammer, and Trump was in a skiff during the votes. It's linked to the hammer, and that is showing all of what is legal, and it's showing all of what is happening, that the system, the hammer is looking at everything that's happening. So it's comparing what QVS is showing is happening compared to what's actually happening. So the cabal had Dominion software that's flipping votes. So, and I'll show some of that in a bit, but there were literally on various news platforms where if you go and watch the recordings, and you can go second by second. You have to go second by second like on CNN and Fox News and several other platforms in which you can see one on Fox News where Trump went down by 560 votes at the exact moment that Biden went up by 560 votes, and Trump went below the number of votes he had originally by that number. So from one second, he dropped 560, he had shown 560 votes more a second earlier. A second later, it's adjusted, so Trump gets some more votes over what he had, but Biden, he gets even more votes, so it's not recognized. You have to go second by second to catch it.
So by it being exact numbers going up and down shows you that it was an algorithm, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So
that acts in a voting situation is a double whammy, because if somebody gains 560 votes from somebody else,
it's 1,020.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Okay, so that was Gene Decode speaking in an interview with His Glory YouTube channel, and this was just recorded the other day. Now, you heard. Let me explain a couple things that Gene Decode just talked about. So President Trump was down in the SCIF. The SCIF is a secluded, secure facility, most likely in the Situation Room below the White House, watching all of these votes come in, and the military and military intelligence was all monitoring this, and the NSA, and watching the fraud happen in real time. In other words, President Trump was getting votes, and all of a sudden he'd lose the votes, and they would go to Biden. And he's watching this happen in real time. Now, there's something that Gene referred to as the hammer. The hammer is also a software that Obama put in to surveil every person in America. Now, you heard him talking about the quantum voting system, and that they are able to trace every person. They put a quantum dot into this, and you heard me talk about this earlier, that they can trace all the votes to the actual owner of the ballot. So President Trump and the military is watching all of this happen, and they're allowing it to happen and gathering evidence in order to expose the corrupt voting system and permanently change it. So this is what's really going on. Now, let me play you the second clip where Gene will go into more detail on this operation that was being conducted on election night. So this is our second clip with Gene Decode in the interview with His Glory. Here we go.
Let me ask you one other question. I assume this to be the case, but if you verify, when that voter took that system, there's a time-dated stamp when they actually voted, correct?
The QVS records to the instant when that vote recorded, and then once the QVS dot records it to the instant.
Right. So if they voted 3 days late, like in Pennsylvania, they would know that was, no matter what they do to the paper ballots, they'll be able to be able to forensically check that.
Right.
Okay. Amazing. And the Project Ham, what you said earlier, I'll put the thing up because they go after this. Our audience is aware that General McInerney, I discovered that March 19th of 2017. But why don't you tell the audience how, two ways they did that. It was over all 50 states with 3 to 5%, and then at 2 o'clock in the morning, they shut the system down and actually connected it to the internet to do phase 2, correct?
Correct. So then the Dominion software cut in, and it algorithmically calculated how much Biden needed to win each of those states. That's why they froze it, and everything froze up and locked, and none of the numbers, percentages, or votes changed at all. And then when it came back on, suddenly Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada, Biden is suddenly shown with a huge gain in votes in many of the states. Of course, he's now took the state that where Trump had the state before. Now Biden has the state, and in actuality, Trump took every state by 80% or more. It was a red wave, as was forecast. It's like Amanda Grace, which I know you've had on your show.
Yeah.
She prophesied this, that they would be caught with their hand in the looking glass. And Mark Taylor has prophesied that we need to have faith in God's plan. This is God's plan. You cannot take somebody to court for a crime they didn't commit. You got to they're going to do it. They have Project, the PC thing, Project, piece of window stuff that you look through. They have that, and they've had that for over 4 years now. They knew this was coming, so they have everything in position, so they let them do the crime. Then they can prove the crime in a state, they have all the information, they prove the crime, take the evidence to court, take the person to court, and then that's a felony.
Yeah.
They are indicted, they're tried, and they're convicted, and they're sentenced. That's how our system works.
So the reason that President Trump would be in a skiff would be that he's working with MI Cyber Command real time, watching them have the rat go to the cheese trap, correct?
Right. Like Amanda Grace said, you're watching the rats take the cheese.
Yeah.
They knew the Chinese votes coming in. They knew the Dominion software. They knew the QVS dot was monitoring. They're watching it lifetime. They're watching the monitoring it. They're watching the device you use to put nails in. All of this stuff.
Yeah.
So Yep. So they're watching this lifetime, and so now they know they've got them. You got to let them commit the crime so that you can catch them in the crime.
So going back to our audience, I reported this to our audience. We were in Miami when the election came in, and my wife went to sleep. I watched the president at about 2 o'clock, and the president said, "You know what? We won the election. We're way ahead in all these states." He says, "You know what? Watch. At 4 a.m., they're going to come out with all these votes." That wasn't a figure of speech. He knew exactly what they were going to do and when they were going to do it.
Exactly. And that's, again, because they have that project system that can look to what's going to occur. They can see it on the timeline. They know what's going to happen. And so they know ahead of time exactly what's going to happen and when. So they have everybody in position to get all of the fraud and all of that monitored. That's why he's saying they're looking at the balloting areas and the counting, and they have put paper over the windows, and they're trying to look from a distance and they're putting paper over the windows. They can't even look with binoculars from a distance or spyware or any of that. They think that's going to stop anything, but the satellite technology, they can look through a wall.
Yeah. Yeah, our technology is far more advanced than anybody can ever even fathom. You mentioned the F-22, that type of technology. Before I got into the ministry, I worked for a very high-tech company out of Seattle, and we did similar things with the U.S. Air Force. And that was 10 years ago. It's incredibly advanced. Being able to read the thoughts, be able to visually, wherever you see, that's where the pilot's seeing. It's just amazing, the technology.
Yeah, it's the old Clint Eastwood movie. They had that it's a very old movie, Foxfire, I believe it was called, where he went to Russia, smuggled out a plane he had to think in Russian. And in actuality, the software doesn't recognize the language. When you're thinking, if somebody reads your thoughts, they will hear it in their own language. Mm-hmm. So the quantum system is reading the thoughts, and it's not reading it in a language, it's reading in the language of thought, which is instantaneously in any language you want it, once you put it into a system that converts it back into what we know as thought or vocalization. So it goes into every language. It's understood instantaneously in every language.
Wow. So before you get to the China piece, how does this fit into the patent that the U.S. Postal Service came up with?
So that again ties to the watermark, to the quantum dot, and all of that. And then of course, the cabal is doing their side of the thing, so they're tying it, and so they're all interrelated because the cabal thinks that they're in control still. So they think they're manipulating and controlling all this, but in actuality, the alliance is the one that's watching the cabal. It's Sun Tzu's Art of War. You're watching your enemy destroy themselves. You're watching, and they're doing all their mechanizations and their Dominion software and their patents and on the U.S. Postal Service and all this. While your enemy, you're watching your enemy do this, recording everything down so that when you take them to court, you go, here's what you did.
So the thing that I got confused about is we were on His Glory reported both of those technologies about three to 6 months ago. That technology was going to be used. But I was thinking, if I knew it was going to be used, then the bad guys knew it was going to be used. So how did they trump that?
The quantum voting system.
There's just no way to go around it, period.
No way. And not only that, but when it records that and then they activate that dot, that ripples out. It has the ripple system. It ripples out to every server on Earth in 2.5 seconds. So you can't hack it. I mean, it ripples to everything everywhere. You would have to hack every server on Earth simultaneously to hack it. You can't hack one at a time. You have to, it accesses every server at the same moment and downloads it in 2.5 seconds. All of the material everywhere in 2.5 seconds.
So could they have been surprised that this was going to happen? I mean, the deep state?
Yeah, they did not understand the level of this technology that was going to happen.
Okay, so that was Gene Decode. The name of the video is entitled His Glory, Take 5 Gene the Decoder Election Fraud. And it's on the YouTube channel of His Glory, Pastor Dave. And that was recorded, I believe, yesterday. So you can listen to the whole interview, very interesting, hour and 20-minute interview on YouTube. So get it while you can, up on YouTube, and that's the latest from Gene Decode. So again, folks, let me reiterate what we've just been saying tonight. Right now, President Trump is leading the Electoral College votes. 232 to 227 for Joe Biden. Now, you just heard that Gene Decode said President Trump won 80% of the votes. He won all 50 states. Okay? All 50 states with 80% of the vote. So, just realize, this is just a massive voter turnout for the president. Now, there's other big news, a big development from the State Department. Breaking news, anti-Trump pro-mob Defense Secretary Mark Esper has been fired. Donald Trump acts as Pentagon Chief. Mark Esper replaces him with NCTC Director Christopher C. Miller. Now, Christopher C. Miller was performing the duties of the Assistant Secretary of Defense for the SOLIC and is a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Combating Terrorism. Miller is responsible for overseeing the employment of Special Operations Forces in counterterrorism, military information support operations, information operations, unconventional warfare, irregular warfare, direct action, special reconnaissance, foreign internal defense, counterproliferation, sensitive special operations, and personal recovery hostage issues as specified by the Secretary of Defense. Now, Joe M. on Gab said this: Chris Miller, the acting Defense Secretary, get to know him. He specializes in irregular warfare and, quote, unconventional warfare, unquote. In other words, infiltration instead of invasion. He has been brought in during wartime. get ready to rumble. And I don't mean an alternative video streaming platform. There's an alternative video platform called Rumble, but Joe M is saying get ready to rumble, meaning this appointment is signifying a step up by the Earth Alliance and U.S. military. On Natural News, this headline, Trump fires Deep State Defense Secretary Mark Esper, indicating a likely plan for military involvement in a declaration of insurrection, meaning President Trump is about, perhaps, we're not sure, declaring an act of insurrection, which allows him to do certain things and basically bring up the military. Now, let's go to a Q drop 2494. This is from November 20th, 2018. And it reads, December 5th, and D is in brackets, D5. Nothing can stop what is coming. Nothing. The election was not about fixing the economy, trade, borders, military, protecting our children, etc. Also, another corrupt politician or insider can simply undo it. Band-Aid. This was not simply another foreign election, but a crossroads in the history of our civilization that will determine whether or not we, the people, reclaim control over our government. Panic in D.C. Q. Now, Joe, let me leave you with this couple of things here, and we're going to go into another topic. Now, Joe M. added this today on Gab. The time draws near. What is still within their power, you have not yet seen, but you know it's coming. Can you imagine the internet getting shut down? Trump's Twitter feed gone. No way to communicate except via emergency alert. Remember the reason Adam Schiff tried and failed to block President Trump's ability to deploy military to quell insurrections. What about their contingency for when there is nothing left to try, nowhere left to run? There was a time when you would have been terrified and confused with such events unfolding around you. But not now. Not today. You have been prepared, and you always knew the end game would arrive. You knew exactly what to tell your loved ones who weren't paying attention, and you know all the right things to say that'll comfort and reassure them. We felt it this week when it looked like we might lose freedom forever, but you were ready and knew exactly how to handle it. You played it cool. Now just do that again, but times 100. So, folks, it looks like everything now is being pulled together. They're going to expose this election fraud. They're going to use it to change the U.S. election system, install voter ID, permanently basically take down all corrupt election systems around the country, and will forever change the voting system in America. Every election has been stolen as long as you have been alive. They steal, they put people, corrupt people into power to do their bidding, but that's all coming to an end now. Now, for the people in California, my heart goes out to you tonight. It looks like Gavin Newsom is trying to ruin your Thanksgiving. California Governor Newsom lays egg with Thanksgiving COVID guidelines. California Governor Newsom announces draconian rules for Thanksgiving. All gatherings must include no more than 3 households, including hosts and guests, and must be held outdoors, lasting for 2 hours or less. The longer the duration of the gathering, the risk of transmission increases, the statement noted. Gatherings that occur outdoors are significantly safer than indoor gatherings. All gatherings must be held outside. Attendees may go inside to use restrooms as long as the restrooms are frequently sanitized, the statement added. So here is the governor of California trying to control what you can do in your home for Thanksgiving holiday. If that isn't fascism, I don't know what is. Now, let's finish up with this. Today is November 11th, 2020. We said it's Veterans Day. Now, we had talked about Veterans Day back in 2018 and how significant it was. Of course, November 11th, 2018 added up to 11 being the 11th month, the 11th day, and then 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 8 equals 11. And 11, 11, 11. Very highly significant. This was back in the year 2018. And I thought, certainly, this extremely powerful number would not go to waste. Now, it is very powerful on an energetic level, the numerology of this date. It's a master, and 11 is a master number, extremely powerful. You got 3 11s, wow, that is really something. So, on Sunday, November 11th, it was Veterans Day 2018, but it was the 100th anniversary of Veterans Day, which was also known as Armistice Day, the anniversary of the end of World War I on November 11th, 1918. And that's when the war to end all wars, they called it, World War I, the Great War, which lasted from 1914 to 1919. World War I was totally engineered by the international banksters. Profiteers from World War I included Kuhn Loeb and Bernard Baruch, J.P. Morgan, Eugene Meyer, Paul Warburg, Max Warburg, Jacob Schiff, Louis Brandeis, and Alfred Rothschild. All were the international banksters that benefited from the wars. World War ended on Armistice Day in 1918 at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Now, in the year 1910, the plotters of the Federal Reserve, the America's central bank, met on the secret island of secret hideaway on Jekyll Island, Georgia. These included Paul Warburg, Senator Nelson Aldrich, Frank Vanderlip, Benjamin Strong, Abe Andrews, Charles Norton, Henry Davidson, all representing banking families, except, of course, Senator Aldrich representing the Congress. In 1910, 7 men met on Jekyll Island just off the coast of Georgia to establish a central bank, which they called the Federal Reserve Bank. These men were Senator Nelson Aldrich and Frank Vanderlip, both representing the Rockefeller financial empire, Henry Davidson, Charles Norton, and Benjamin Strong representing J.P. Morgan, and Paul Warburg representing the Rothschild banking dynasty of Europe. We have already seen that the Rothschilds were the banking agents of the papacy's Jesuits holding, the key to the wealth of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, the Federal Reserve Act was eventually signed into law by President Woodrow Wilson on December 23, 1913, while the majority of the U.S. Congress was away on Christmas vacation. And the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 created the first central banking system of America. Now, the news headlines of the Federal Reserve at the time, President's signature, President Woodrow Wilson's signature, enacts a currency law. Wilson declares that the first series of constructive acts to aid businesses, is meant to steal America's wealth. Many wealthy Americans opposed the creation of the central bank in America, the Federal Reserve. These included Archibald William Butt, Molly Brown, Charles Melville Hayes, American tycoons Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidor Straus, and John Jacob Astor IV, reported to be the richest man in America at the time. And these were all people. By the way, John Jacob Astor was supposedly worth $500 million. So what happened was that J.D. Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, and N.M. Rothschild all plotted to install a central bank in America in order to hijack the global banking system. J.P. Morgan acted as an American-based agent working on behalf of the Rothschilds. He was hired by the Rothschilds. He worked for the Rothschilds as an agent. So, what happened was they came up with this devious plan to get rid of all the most influential and wealthy Americans who opposed the Federal Reserve. And that was the Titanic. Those in opposition were given free tickets to the maiden voyage of the luxury liner, the RMS Titanic. The RMS Titanic was part of the White Star fleet of luxury liners. And White Star Lines was owned by J.P. Morgan, cabal banker. All the wealthy and powerful men the Jesuits wanted to get rid of were invited to take the cruise. Three of the richest, most powerful of these were Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidor Straus, the head of Macy's department stores, and John Jacob Astor IV, probably the wealthiest man in the world. Their total wealth at the time, using dollar values at their day, was more than $500 million. Today, the amount of money would be nearly $11 billion. These three men were coaxed and encouraged to board the floating palace. They had to be destroyed because the Jesuits knew they would use their wealth and influence to oppose the Federal Reserve Bank, as well as the various wars that were being planned. So, George Washington Vanderbilt, owner of the Biltmore Mansion in Asheville, North Carolina, was also given free tickets on the maiden voyage of the Titanic, but did not go on that trip. However, none of the passengers were aware the Titanic had been secretly switched with another ship, the RMS Olympic. The RMS Olympic had been severely damaged in the collision several months earlier. On April 10th, 1912, the Titanic, really the RMS Olympic, left Southampton, England port, headed for a stop in Belfast, Ireland. Jesuit agent Father Francis Brown, who was an avid photographer, boarded the ship in Belfast and documented many of the passengers aboard the Titanic with photographs. I have his book that was published of all his photographs. He was in charge of making sure all of these people that opposed the Federal Reserve were on board that ship, the RMS Titanic, really the RMS Olympic. So the RMS Titanic was launched from Belfast, Ireland on May 31st, 1911. Father Francis Brown and the Black Pope at the time, Francis Xavier Werns, were the primary co-conspirators working on behalf of the Jesuits. Captain Edward Smith and his first officer, McElroy, were Jesuits of the short robe, loyal to the Jesuit code. In other words, they were not priests, but loyal to the Jesuit order. Captain Smith purposely steered the Titanic, really the Olympic, smashing it into an iceberg in the North Atlantic Sea. The RMS Titanic sank into the North Atlantic on April 15th, 1912. The sailing path of the Titanic and the iceberg it hit were inevitable. The Titanic sank because the sea conditions were just too good. So, as the headlines read in America, John Jacob Astor lost on Titanic, 1,500 to 1,800 dead. The Jesuits and the international bankers had literally killed off all the final roadblocks to installing the Federal Reserve Central Bank into America. How to create the Federal Reserve, a quick and easy tutorial. 1, you build a luxury ship. 2, you invite those opposed to centralized banking onto the said ship. 3, then you sink the ship. Now, some of these articles appeared. There's a crazy conspiracy theory that the Rothschilds sank the Titanic to set up the Federal Reserve. Oh, yes, that's just a crazy conspiracy theory. Now, let's go back to the end of World War I. A celebration this was November 11, 2018, the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. Now, as soon as the Federal Reserve came on board, the bankers had planned 3 great wars, beginning with World War I, which ended in 1918. So they celebrated the 100th anniversary in Paris, France. Now, President Trump had originally wanted to have a parade in Washington, D.C. On November 11th, 2018, the military parade was canceled, and instead President Trump attended the 100th anniversary day ceremonies in Paris, France. Many other world leaders attended the ceremonies, including Vladimir Putin and, of course, Angela Merkel and many other European leaders. The big question was, why would the Q military team, Intelligent Patriots, not take advantage of the highly significant date of 11/11/11? As it turned out, something really big happened on November 11, 2018. Q had said there would be a parade to end all parades on November 11, 2018. And many were anticipating this parade, and then suddenly it was canceled. But what happened on November 11, 2018, there was a massive global geophysical event which occurred, which reverberated throughout the entire world. And it affected every man, woman, and child on planet Earth. No scientist noticed that a so-called earthquake happened, except for a guy on Twitter named Matarik Pax. And he started posting about these earthquakes. This is the most odd and unusual seismic signal recorded at Kalamamabago, Kenya. You can hear it, Lusaka, Zambia, he wrote. And at Mount Fury, Ethiopia. And also San Pablo, Spain. And here in Wellington, New Zealand. So the headlines read, bizarre seismic waves rippled around the world and nobody knows why. Nobody knows why the earth just rang like a bell. Strange seismic waves that rippled around the world leave scientists baffled. Just before 9:30 a.m. on sunny November 11, 2018, a series of unusual seismic pulses rippled around the world almost undetected. The waves rang for over 20 minutes, emanating about 15 miles off the shores of Mayotte, a tiny island in the Indian Ocean between Madagascar and Africa. From here, they reverberated across Africa, setting off at geological sensors in Zambia, Kenya, and Ethiopia. They crossed the Atlantic and were picked up in Chile, New Zealand, Canada, and even Hawaii, nearly 11,000 miles away, the National Geographic reported. Despite the huge range, the waves were apparently not felt by anybody. However, one person monitoring the U.S. Geological Survey's live stream of seismogram displays did notice the unusual waveform and posted it to Twitter, sparking the interest of other geologists and earthquake enthusiasts. Twitter user Matarik Pax posted the waveforms, describing the first instance as a most odd and unusual seismic signal. It was not only the power of the seismic waves which puzzled scientists when they began to examine the readings, but also curiously regular shape of the waveform. In a typical earthquake, The rapid crash of tectonic plate movement sends out what is known as a wave train, composed of several types of waves moving at different speeds from the epicenter of the quake. Seismographs measure the fastest waves first, the primary or the P waves, which arrive in an abrupt cluster. Then the secondary S waves, and finally rumbling along later come slower low-frequency surface waves. In a powerful quake, these can move across the surface of the planet several times. However, the wave pattern seen on November 11, 2018, resembled these slow-moving waveforms, usually following large earthquakes. Only in this case, there had not been a perceptible earthquake. The bizarre waveform is what scientists call monochromatic. Earthquakes normally produce waves of so many different frequencies, the wave readings appear more jumbled. But the mystery waveform from Mayotte Island was a crisp zigzag, which repeated after steady 17-second intervals. They're too nice. They're too perfect to be nature, joked the University of Glasgow's Helen Robinson, who was studied for a PhD in applied volcanology. Speaking of the National Geographic, she added the location of the island means industrial sources of the wave, such as oil drilling or from wind farms, could be ruled out. So, folks, what could cause these regular slow waves? Could it have been a meteor strike, an illegal weapons test, previously undiscovered sea monsters? Despite the mysteries, scientists do have clues as to the cause of the seismic event. Mayotte, an uninhabited French island, was formed as a result of volcanic eruptions around 4,000 years ago. But since then, the area has largely remained volcanically inactive. However, since May last year, the island nation has been rocked by hundreds of earthquakes, all of which have emanated offshore, and the largest of which measures 5.8 on the Richter scale. The island is believed to be moving about 2 inches southeast each year. But in recent months, seismic activity has declined, and on the 11th of November, 2018, no traditional quakes were detected. According to National Geographic, analysis by the French Geological Survey suggests the new activity may point to a huge movement of magma beneath the Earth's crust, miles offshore and under thousands of feet of water. But a seismologist at the Columbia University who specializes in unusual earthquakes told the magazine, "I don't think I've seen anything like it. It doesn't mean that in the end the cause of them is that exotic." Another theory is that an underwater volcanic eruption occurred, which would have been capable of producing the waveforms. However, no evidence of such an event has yet seen. Satellite images are not believed to have recorded the formation of a pumice raft typically seen after a submarine eruption. Regarding the uniform 17-second waveform, scientists currently estimate the resonance from the magma body could be sonically filtered by the unique and complicated tectonic geography of the area, only allowing certain frequencies to escape the immediate environment. With the definitive cause of these conditions in the area remain unknown, the French Geological Survey is planning to undertake ocean bottom surveys to obtain detailed information about this little explored region, as well as investigating the possibility of a submarine eruption. Well, there's more to this story, folks. Now remember, this is Veterans Day 2018, November 11th, this very day 2 years ago. Seismic sensors recorded that the Earth just rang like a bell on November 11th, but nobody knows why it happened. Strange waves rippled around the world and nobody knows why. But this geophysical event sent out multiple monochromatic pulse waves, each lasting precisely 17 seconds. 17 seconds. Now, Only one person noticed the odd signal on the U.S. Geological Survey's real-time seismic displays. An earthquake enthusiast who uses the handle of Meteoric Pox saw the curious zigzags and posted all of them to Twitter. Now, Maya Island, this is off the coast of Madagascar in Africa. Very likely location of a deep underground military base. Now, also, what's very interesting here is that on December 2nd, 2018, now this would be about 3.5 weeks later, Q dropped 2527 on December 2nd, 2018. And Anon asks, what happened to the 11/11 Unified America Day, you disgusting liar fraud? Answer, please. And then a derogatory term was leveled at Q. And Q responded, think waves, worldwide, define unified, and then the number 17 in brackets. Satellite knockout force new classification tech online by who? Controlled moment activated 17. Do you believe in coincidences? Do you believe your efforts here to persuade people to stop the pursuit of truth? There is a place for everyone, Q. So, in other words, Q said, think waves, 17-second pulse waves, monochromatic waves that went out time and time again, and they were felt worldwide, WW. Define unified, QS. Is that the unified theory? Q states that it's unified. The unified theory is a term coined by Albert Einstein to describe his fruitless attempt to combine general relativity and electromagnetism. It now broadly denotes the goal of describing all elementary particles and fundamental forces in terms of a single field. For example, a theory of everything. So in other words, Q was telling us something happened on November 11th, 2018, and they purposely generated these pulse waves around the Earth to unify the entire Earth population. Then on February 11th, 2019, February 11th, this Q drop. And that Anon says, here to end, sir. And Q responds, you will never be alone. We are united. Godspeed, Patriot. Where we go one, we go all. Q. Now, isn't this interesting, folks? So what is really going on here? So, on November 11th, 2019, Q, now this is a year ago from today, this Q post number 3585, a link to Twitter, and it's a link to the Twitter page of Clark Petronov, and he says, dang, so that was an IP address, not a date. He's referring to a military server, 11.11.18.0. And Q says this, Project Looking Glass, question mark, going forward in order to look back. What is Project Looking Glass? It is Project Looking Glass allows a viewer to look into the future and into the past. It was demonstrated in the movie Contact with Jodie Foster. Jodie Foster plays a scientist who goes into another dimension via Looking Glass technology. Now, Project Looking Glass has been used by the cabal and elite families to skew and alter the history of the world. And it was back engineered supposedly from alien or ET technology. Project Looking Glass was similar to the Einstein-Rosen bridge, which is one of Einstein's other theories. In 1935, Albert Einstein and physicist Nathan Rosen used the theory of general relativity to elaborate on the idea of proposing the existence of bridges through space-time. These bridges connect 2 points in space, theoretically connecting a shortcut that could reduce travel time and distance. Now, according to Dr. Dan Burish, who many insiders have said worked at Area 51 and S4 in the Nevada desert, Project Looking Glass was separated into 3 main components. Number 1, a ring component to create energy. Number 2, a barrel component filled with water. And number 3, a projection component to peer into the future. Project Looking Glass was decommissioned and 3 separate components were distributed to the United Nations, the European Union, and NATO. And eventually, the positive military got control of it. But in the interim, the Earth and humanity were on a single timeline, which was known as Timeline 1, and the Cabal diverted the Earth and humanity into Timeline 2, which put them in control. Timeline 2 is Timeline number 2 is a cycle season of catastrophe. That was coined by Falconelli, a amazing philosopher. Now, we needed to get through the altered timeline in order to get back into Timeline 1, which the military eventually put us back on, which lasted approximately 1980 to 2012. Then they let it run for another 4 years to make sure that the altered timeline completely played out. And then Project Looking Glass was turned back on in the year 2016 or 2017. So what happened in the year 2016? Donald Trump won the 2016 presidential election on November 8th against all odds. Now, Dan Burish said this was going to happen about the timeline being switched all the way back in this 2009 interview, or actually 2007 interview with Project Camelot. He said they would turn it back on in the year 2016 or 2017. What happened in 2017? Q arrived on the scene on October 28th, 2017. And the numerology of that date, 10-10-10. Wow. So something really huge happened in 2018, which altered the Earth timeline, or unified the Earth to anchor it into this timeline and unify all the world. Where we go one, we go all. I'm very surprised that here on November 11th, 2020, we haven't heard from Q, because the last 2 years, Q has dropped some real bombshells. So anyways, that's the program for tonight, folks. And I think you'll agree this is amazing times we're living in. And, you know, it's not easy to explain this stuff. We can only conjecture at this time on some of these things. So anyways, again, I want to remind you that tonight we have informed you, we have reported that Donald Trump is leading in the official election count. Again, this is hugely significant because Joe Biden hasn't won anything. He's not even in the lead, let alone about to be president. This is so ridiculous and really amazingly fraudulent. And the numbers right now in the Electoral College are favoring President Trump. In fact, right now, President Trump is leading 232 electoral college votes to Joe Biden's 227, with Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia to be officially certified. Now, I have a feeling, if you heard tonight, Gene Decode said that President Trump won in all 50 states. So guess what? The National Guard is in a number of states right now, or has been, which include Alabama, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Texas, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Washington, Virginia, Delaware, Illinois, and Kentucky. I think you're going to see the vote flip in all of those states, which could mean, and I'm just conjecturing right now, that Governor Jay Inslee may not have actually been elected in a real legal election. We shall see. So keep that in mind as this plays itself out. So tonight, folks, that's about all the intel I want to share with you. We are going to wrap up this part of our program, and we're going to switch ourselves into our Q&A mode, and we'll bring on Maria Love onto our program and see if she's got any questions, and we'll open up the
Q&A session has started.
So, Maria, if you've got any questions for me, come on board and let us know what you've got by text or email, and you can send your questions into Maria Love by text if you're on our text list, or you can also do so by email. So, Maria, are you there?
I'm here, Scott.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. I just have a question, one question, and then some comment. So it says, ask Scott if he would repeat slowly how we can listen to the latest Gene Decode.
Okay. I'll repeat this again for everyone. The name of the video is His Glory, Take 5, Gene the Decoder Election Fraud. And it's on the His Glory YouTube page, YouTube channel. And it was posted yesterday, I believe. And so it's a fairly new interview. And again, it's with Pastor Dave and Gene the Decoder. His Glory, Take 5, Gene the Decoder Election Fraud, on the His Glory YouTube channel. So that's where you can find that video if you'd like to listen to the whole interview. Okay? So, I am here also reading emails, and we'll take your questions via email as well. So this is a question here or I guess a statement from Dick that's come in. Although we are talking about Trump winning, and they look at others who might be running and be able to pick up votes for the Senate races and also the House. Yeah, so I think some of these House races, and Gene talked about this, particularly in California, are going to be overturned. Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi. I think you're going to see some of these elections go through a radical change once the truth is brought out. Now, some people are reporting that YouTube is down today. I haven't noticed that. So I haven't noticed anything that's come up with YouTube regarding any problems. Now, I don't know if anyone else has. Some people here, did you hear YouTube is down? No, I haven't noticed that at all. This is from Keith. Hi, Scott. Do we have a time frame as when the disclosures will start? Well, they've already started, Keith. I don't know precisely what you're referring to, but I would anticipate that you're going to see things definitely heat up as we get closer to the Electoral College. Now, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of legal battles. This is going to go to the Supreme Court. I'm afraid we have a ways to go yet, unfortunately. Okay, so let's go to our Q&A line. We'll take a few questions here with our remaining time for tonight. I'm going to go to 0529. Are you there?
Yeah, hi, Scott. This is Marilyn.
Hi, Marilyn.
I'm so thrilled with all this news. I just want to know when, I know this is much like the gentleman's question just before me, when will the general public be told about this QVS dot and the watermark and all this marvelous technology like the F-22? When will that be brought so that my family, other people can know about this?
Marilyn, I can never answer the when questions. It just depends.
But they will? They'll be told sometime?
I would imagine so. I think it'll be brought out
because you know
when they will expose the fraud. And I would imagine, I mean, it's out already now. It's just, you just got to look for it. Like I said, Gene has talked about it.
Okay.
Charlie Freak has talked about it. Charlie Ward has talked about it. It's everywhere right now. But whether that will go mainstream, not until the media is dealt with. And I think this whole election fraud is going to bring down the fake news media too. Okay?
Yeah, they're very complicit. And then one more quick question about the financial change. Was Woodrow Wilson in on the Titanic thing? Did he know about all that?
I don't know if he knew about it, but he certainly knew about probably the three great wars that were planned after the Federal Reserve came on board, and was probably complicit in that.
Oh my God, this is just amazing. I mean, it's amazing. Okay, thank you. I'm so thrilled about this good news about our president.
You're welcome.
Genius. It's just genius.
It is.
And I want everybody to know. Because nobody believes me.
It'll eventually come out. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much tonight.
All right. Our next question is 5531. Are you there?
Yes. This is Sherry from California.
Hi, Sherry.
Hi. So I was curious, when we were listening to that tape and they were talking about the vote, how they can read who's doing the vote and everything. So I'm curious because I filled out my husband's because we have absentee ballots. Could that mean that it could have been not counted because I did his? I mean, he signed it. But...
Yeah, that's a good question. I would imagine if you're married that's not an issue. And I think once his signature went on the ballot, did he sign his ballot?
Yes.
That made it legitimate. Yes. So I would say don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really worried if I was just kind of curious, for the future, really, because like at this point it doesn't matter. But okay, yeah, I just was curious about that. That's it.
That's a good question, though. But I wouldn't worry. I would be concerned. Thank you, Sherry.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, let's go to 0260. 0260. You there?
This is Marion from Maryland. My question is on the Federal Reserve. When is that going to be eliminated and the Federal Reserve note replaced by a U.S.-backed gold currency?
Well, as I just explained to our previous caller, I cannot answer when questions. So the Federal Reserve has already been rolled into the Treasury, as been reported by Yahoo and Bloomberg News. So it's a question of when they make it official, and that is, I don't know. I would assume once this election is officially certified in President Trump's favor, you'll start to see some of these big developments start to roll out. I would anticipate, I'm hoping it happens by the end of this year, but we can't guarantee that. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard to answer when questions. Timing is everything. Okay?
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. God bless. Okay, up next 1227.
Hi, Scott. This is Marshall Chase from California.
Hi, Marshall.
Tonight you were talking quite a bit about the watermarks and so forth on the ballot. This afternoon I heard on Sebastian Gorka's radio program some way that issue came up, and he really poo-pooed the idea, even though he's really close to President Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I just wondered, I don't know whether you heard that, but do you have any idea why he would talk that way? Is that just for some strange reason? But he surely knows about it if it's true, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I don't think he would reveal it if it were true, but he's very, Sebastian Gorka is very anti-Q, and he doesn't like to validate so-called conspiracy theories, so I'm not at all surprised that he would say that. I think that's pretty much in keeping with his character. And
okay. The argument that he used was that supposedly that watermark was done by the federal government, and of course the states are the ones that are supposed to be in charge of all elections, and so that would not take place or could not take place. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that the Patriots couldn't have done something. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't.
But I know I've heard Sebastian poo-poo the idea of Q too, so I don't know if that's just an outward face-saving thing, or if he really believes that. I don't know. But anyway, I do have another little quick question here. The other day I heard President Trump on a speech of his allude to the idea that he might be thinking in terms of running for president in 2024. And of course, the Dems said, "Oh, he's admitting finally that he's losing this election, so he's going to think in terms of 2024." My question is there a possibility, or I don't know if you had heard that, or would there be a possibility of the idea of as the Restored Republic comes in, that he will be the first president of the Restored Republic, which may make it possible for him to have a second term in the Restored Republic. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a legitimate question, and I think that's something to consider, because we are going to go back to our original organic constitutional republic, meaning that President Trump was president of the corporation perhaps in 2016, and then he would allow him to run 2 terms as president of the Restored Republic. However, I've heard that they've already have a plan for 2024, and it's not President Trump, but his vice president, and that's not Mike Pence. And you know who I'm talking about, right?
Well, I was interested in the idea that he alluded to maybe he thinking in terms of running in 2024. But anyway, that thought just crossed my mind, and I appreciate your thoughts on it.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a good question, Marshall, and it's definitely something to consider. However, as it stands now, I haven't heard that, but I keep waiting for President to resign from the corporation, and basically then he comes back in as president of the Restored Republic. So this is going to be interesting to see how this poll plays out, but I think your question is a legitimate one to consider for now.
Yeah, well, there will probably be things take place in the next couple of months that we don't know about yet. So, okay, thank you so much.
You can count on that, Marshall. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
God bless.
I know.
Okay, up next, let's go to our queue, and we have an anonymous person. Are you there?
Yeah, hi, Scott. This is Bernice in California.
Hi, Bernice.
Hi. This question is unrelated to this evening's call, but what is the fee for the 3 CD seminar, not seminar, but of Ron the Inventor's call? I've been trying to order, and I was going back, listening to the past couple of calls, and I haven't been able to find.
Okay. If you'd like to order it, send me an email. You want to order the set and have it sent to you? Is that what you want?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. It's a 3 CD set, and including postage, it's $25 for the 3 CD set. So
okay, that's
send me an email and your address.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that. All right, thank you. And the other, I do have a question. Why would we believe that the other side doesn't also know the Project Looking Glass and isn't aware and acting accordingly?
Well, I just explained to you, they used to have control of it, but the positive military gained control of it, I guess around sometime before 2012. And they lost control, the cabal lost control of it, and the positive military took over and put us back on the original Earth timeline.
Okay. All right, cool. Sorry I missed that before. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Bernice. God bless. Okay, up next, our final caller. Okay, you're up next. Are you there? Hello? Can you hear me? Are you on mute? You might want to unmute your microphone. We can't hear you, so if you've got a question, you might want to come in again. I'm going to go back to my emails. And Maria Love, do you have anything else that's come in since then?
Yeah, there is a question back when you were talking about Biden saying that they had created the biggest fraud in voting, whatever. She wanted to understand what you meant by if the Patriots were controlling Biden. How can they do that if Biden is from the other side?
The clone, the real Joe Biden is dead. They control the clone and can kind of make him say whatever. So they had him admit to the fraud before it actually happened. You see? So they have his admission on tape of committing, of putting an organization together to commit voter fraud, and then they actually did it. So now they've got the sworn admission and they've got the proof. And there you go. Amazing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is there something else?
Let me check when came in. Okay, this is from Maryland. I have another question. It's rumored that in California all votes for Trump were thrown away. If true, how do we know how many votes there were and where they were thrown away?
Okay, it's a 3-word answer. Quantum voting system. They have it all. They know exactly what happened, even if the ballots were thrown away. They know all of this, and this will eventually determine the outcome of the election. So just understand there's a process by which they're going to go through. Lawsuits probably first, and then they're going to prove this all in court. It'll probably go to the Supreme Court, and where they'll present all the evidence they have, and President Trump will be declared the winner, and then we'll wait and see how much of this is going to come out. So we're in for a bit of a ride here yet. And it may peak around the 14th of December when the Electoral College certifies the election. Okay? All right. Anything else, Maria?
No, that's it.
Okay, I've got a couple more questions here. Let's see. From Debbie says, question 1. Please tell the customer service email for the iGuard as the frequency. Okay, so it's Cindy, CINDY, at magicalwaves.com. Question number 2. Why do we need to be careful about listening to Alex Jones from InfoWars? Because Q has warned us about Alex Jones. Just go to the Q drops, QAnon.pub, type in Alex Jones or InfoWars. There's probably about 15, 20 posts about Alex Jones warning about his connections to the CIA. Question here from Laura. You mentioned that 3 great wars were planned by the group on Jekyll Island. No, that was not planned by that group. They were already planned in 1871 by the 33rd degree Freemason Albert Pike. in a letter to the head of the Italian Illuminati, Giuseppe Mazzini. And this letter apparently was in the London Museum and then magically disappeared. So the three great wars started as soon as the Federal Reserve came on board in 1913. That was followed by World War I in 1914, just a few months later. Assuming World War I and War II, what was the third war they planned? Well, World War III, which is what we have essentially been in since 9/11. And that's the Middle East War, the endless wars, which President Trump is putting an end to. Okay? Kimberly writes in and says, "Hi Scott, great show tonight. God bless you. YouTube and BitChute were down for some time today. Charlie Freak did an emergency live show this afternoon announcing that a rolling blackout of the internet has begun. Also, can you say the source you are reading off, the Titanic information? Great info." Okay, so I hadn't noticed that YouTube was down today or BitChute, but thank you, Kimberly, for the heads up. If anyone else has heard anything, Laura, maybe you have something to report on that. You can chime in. The source of the Titanic information comes from a variety of sources. You look on the internet and look up the Titanic and the Federal Reserve, and you'll find a lot. There's a lot of information out there. And also another one is, I'm trying to think of the guy, is a former priest that's come out and talked about it. And I believe his last name was May. But anyways, there's a lot out there about the Titanic and its involvement in the creation of the Federal Reserve. And it's pretty easy to find. Let's see. Let's go to Karen. In 2018, at Chicago Trump Tower, the elevator, there was a Santa Claus with a hammer. Could you explain this? Yeah. So that was indicating hammer, which was the surveillance tool that Obama used on the entire country, all of us. But also, it's also referring to hammer time, which is where the Q team is about ready to lay down the gauntlet and begin a huge operation. Mike writes in, do you think the post in 1860 amendments would have to be approved? So maybe no term limits and no women's suffrage for at least a while. I don't really know, Mike. I haven't really considered those. But we're going to go back to our original organic constitution, which was changed in the year 1871, and with I'm sure a few exceptions, but the government is going to be reduced in size. We're going to go back to laws of the land rather than laws of the sea or maritime law or the UCC, the Uniform Commercial Codes. We're going to go back to a much smaller government, a republic based on the rule of law, not only statutes and codes and made-up laws that they have put into place to trick us. We're going to get away from the Federal Reserve System and the birth certificates. We're going to go to true valued money and commerce. We're going to go back to gold-backed currency and precious metal-backed with a new quantum financial system, which every single dollar will be tied to a serial number in a gold bar in a vault somewhere. You're going to control inflation. You're going to see prices stabilize, if not go down. You're going to see a national sales tax, no more income tax, probably no more property taxes, and a lot of other taxes are going to go away as unconstitutional. Big things are coming. Okay, let me finish up here with emails. Let's see, Esther. Hello, Scott. Can you repeat the YouTube link? Okay, again, the YouTube link from the show tonight that we talked about, I assume you're talking about the Gene Decode, is entitled His Glory, Take 5, Gene the Decoder Election Fraud. It's on the His Glory YouTube channel. I posted it in the chat on the free conference call program tonight. You can all see it there if you wish. Okay. Okay, let's see here. A couple questions in the chat I probably should take a look at here. How would the public know that the vote is overturned when the whole media is skewered? Well, President Trump is going to come out with his own news channel. You're going to see the mainstream media being caught up in this scandal, and it's going to be their undoing. It's going to be their demise. It's going to be their final last gasp. And I think you're going to see a lot of these big news corporations go down or restructured in some way. And I believe there's been a rumor that Tucker Carlson has been approached by the White House to join the White House new television news channel, and maybe some other reporters like Sean Hannity will go and join the president as well. Okay. So yes, here on the chat, Charlie Freakin channel had 45 minutes of YouTube outage tonight, but YouTube recovered okay. Okay. And also on the chat, I've heard of White Hats Alliance rescuing 3,000 children from tunnels and being adopted out to loving homes. This seems to unbelievable to find homes for 3,000 traumatized kids with no more explanation than that. Yeah, I don't really think that has happened. I think they've gone into major trauma recovery, and they may have actually been taken aboard highly advanced medical ships that are not of this earth. So I can't really comment because I just don't know much more beyond that. So we'll have to see. I'm not sure when all of this is going to come out about these rescues from these tunnels. We'll have to see. Okay. Let's wrap it up for tonight. Maria Love, do we have anything else available tonight for questions?
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay.
It's pretty quiet on my end.
Pretty quiet. Okay, we'll finish up with these in our queue, and then we'll call it a night. Let's go to 6366.
Hello, Scott. How are you doing? This is Paul from Michigan. How are you, sir?
Hey, Paul.
Yes, sir. You mentioned earlier about President Trump. First of all, I love your show. I can't make it as much as I can, but I tried to catch you tonight. Hey, Scott, you mentioned about the U.S. corporation and Trump. You didn't know when he was going to leave the corporation. Well, I have a friend who's really big into gematria. He told me that one rally he was in Wisconsin, that when he said he has to go away for a while, I believe it was at the World Food Factory. He said, go away for a little while.
Right.
And people thought you won't see him for 2 weeks, but he came back the next day.
Right.
My friend told me he walked away. He basically left the corporation then. So I will get more information and call you Sunday and let you know what more he says, because I just want to let the callers know that I believe we're out of it already.
Yeah, and there's a belief that we left it on the 5th of November as well, to Anna von Reitz. So, it seems to be unclear. I haven't gotten any intel on this yet, Paul, but as soon as I do know something, I'll report it to you. Okay?
Yes, I'll talk to my buddy, too, and let him explain it to me more, but he did mention that. And I remember the exact same conversation because I'm really big into this. But I appreciate everything, Scott.
Okay, well, let us know.
You, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, let us know what you find out, Paul. Thank you.
I most certainly will, sir. Take care.
God bless. Thank you, Paul. Okay, let's go to 7866.
Hi, Scott. It's Marilyn. How are you?
Hi, Marilyn.
Thank you so much for a very wonderful show tonight. It's absolutely fantastic. I just had one comment that I wanted to share with you. I was listening to Charlie Ward the last few days, and he did make a comment that the med beds were being used right now for veterans who had limbs blown off to regenerate them, and also to help them with the trauma, and to help the children being brought up from the underground to help the traumatized children. The med beds were being used.
Right, and I think that's in keeping with my comments that they're using advanced technologies, and who knows where these med beds have originated from, to help these very traumatized and very sick individuals that have been put in or into these underground bases and have been really victimized. So yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that at all, Marilyn.
Yeah. And there was a lady that asked a question about the med beds, I think Sunday night, and she was wondering if the med beds could be used to help mental illness or any mental problems. And apparently that is going to be the case because they're doing it with the veterans and the children.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I think so.
Right.
I think that's to be expected for sure.
Okay, Scott. Thanks again. God bless.
Is this Marilyn M?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I sent you an email. Check your email and get back to me, okay?
I sure will. Thank you, Scott.
Okay, Marilyn. Thank you. God bless. Okay, finally, our last caller tonight. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Scott. This is Chris. I forgot to unblock my phone, so I probably
no
should
problem.
have.
It says, you know what it says next for your, it says unavailable. So it means you're not available to us, Chris, but go ahead anyways.
So anyway, I just wanted to, I never get tired of that Titanic story, and you just do such a great job. But I just wanted to make a couple comments that maybe some other people that are listening might want to check on themselves and realize how crazy this whole thing is with Joe Biden. A lot of people forget what he said at the debate when Chris Wallace asked him if he would refuse to, say that he was the winner until the election was certified.
Mm-hmm.
He said he would wait until the votes were counted and the election was certified.
Right.
And said yes, he would wait. And what's he doing right now? He's complaining with Trump for not conceding. I mean, everyone can look up that debate. I think it was toward the end of the debate when Chris asked that last question or so. But they can check for themselves and hear him say it.
Right.
It's all over Twitter.
Gee, what a shock, Chris. Joe Biden lied again. What a shock.
Yeah, and then the other thing is John Brennan. Somebody mentioned that the reason he came out with that Trump thing of I'm concerned about what Trump's going to do, that was right after Trump fired Mark Esper.
Right.
So Mark Esper definitely was working with Brennan and all the rest of them. So that was kind of crazy. And have you heard any more about Judge Jeanine? I heard she left or got terminated or fired there at Fox. Have you heard any more about that?
No, I have not, and I would be shocked if that's the case because she's the highest-rated program on the weekends. But maybe
that's been going around Twitter that she probably said, "Well, fine, I'm out of here." Then I suppose I went down. I don't know how it went down, but I'm still waiting. I haven't been on to see if she's still having her shows, but maybe it was all just a rumor.
Yeah, I have got no confirmation of that, Chris, but it's certainly a story to keep our eyes on.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you, Scott. We'll look forward to your next call.
All right, thank you, Chris. God bless.
Bye.
All right, folks, that's going to do our program. Oh, someone snuck in. I'll get you right under the radar, under the last minute here, 6016.
Hi, Scott, it's Marcy.
Yes, Marcy.
Regarding the last person that just talked about Judge Jeanine, I did see that, and I was actually one of the people that was trying to retweet it because she was suspended. She was suspended from Fox, and her the story that she did for last week never aired. So
Right.
apparently they recorded it and everything, but because Fox was just having a fit, and they said, nope, we're not airing it. We're suspending you. So I don't know exactly if that means that she is fired, but if you look at her tweets, she's predicting that Newsmax station on, it's a cable station, and they also do it on YouTube, and it gives factual news and everything. It's similar to OAN. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
She predicted that Newsmax was going to get all of the ratings. The ratings for Fox are just dropping,
Right.
and all of the people from Fox are totally fleeing. They're leaving the business is not working for them anymore. They're just getting out of there.
Well,
And that was recorded.
I haven't heard any other departures yet, so I think it's too early to say that they're all leaving, but that could happen.
That was reported. That was reported by Gary Franchi.
Okay, well, I watched.
He did that today.
I watched Tucker tonight. I watched Sean Hannity before our program tonight. They were both on, and I assume Laura Ingraham was on tonight. So I would assume if any of those are going to leave, it would be those three and possibly Judge Janine and Jesse Waters. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. Take a look at Next News Network because he does talk about that. He did talk about that this morning, I believe, about Judge Janine.
Okay. Thank you, Marcy.
You're welcome. Take care.
Okay, one last caller here. 9509, then we're going to call her night. Are you there?
Yeah, Scott, this is Bob.
Hey,
I just
Bob.
want to make a comment. I just want to tell you that whatever phone you're using tonight, keep using it. You come in louder and clearer than any time I've ever heard you.
Okay, well, I'm just using my computer microphone. Pretty primitive.
That's what you said, and it's working good as far as I can tell.
All right, thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. God bless. Okay, folks, that's going to be our program tonight. We're going to say thank you for joining us. Maria Love, any final word from you tonight?
I had to unmute myself. No, just everybody just to walk in peace and be happy and know everything is just going to turn out, in divine timing. And, we're awakening all this time as we're watching and going through a lot of different shifts and changes as well. So, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, it is. And it's going to be really fun when this all turns around. So just have patience. All right, thanks, Maria, and thanks, Laura, for your help tonight. Thanks to the Triad Theater. Normally this would be our Triad night, for joining us, and all the local people. Good to see all of you on election night. And we'll look forward to having another live event possibly in the near future. And I want to say thank you all, to all of you for joining us here across America, across